ourselves so seriously. Shake it off just a minute. Just shake it off some. You're not that spiritual. Come on. You know, I think sometimes we're just full of it. We're fighting so hard to be enlightened, and it's like we're fighting the enlightenment away. It is such a gift that's always present with us. And there's nowhere to go. And there's nothing to get. And there's no one to be. Look at somebody and say, I heard something about you. I heard you're nobody. What an insult to my esteem. My self-esteem. Look at somebody, look at somebody again and say, I heard something else about you. That you're everybody. And that you're all that. And a bag of chips. Now, if I wanted to bring the bag of chips things out of the 80s and 90s, I would bring it to our current time with saying, on God. Sorry, is that too soon for you? That's brain rot. That's Generation Z, right? Is that right? And my son Gavin's going, stop. You can stop anytime you get ready. Just recently, I found out some things that I didn't know were out there, some sayings and stuff. You know, this started years ago with all the YouTube getting started, you know, and I'd be taking the kids to school and they'd be doing some kind of a new dance or some kind of a new language. I mean, our kids are trilingual. They're trying any language they can locate to be different than what we experience. And so they would start that stuff. And just back then, Gavin was doing this thing where it was the dab. Oh, yes, you were. You were a dab king. Oh, yes. And then the nay-nay. Did anybody remember that? The school teachers, anybody? Watch me whip, watch me nay-nay. And what was it? It was like a whip and nay-nay or something like that, right? So, Mr. John, I would wait for it to be out of fashion, and then it was only about 6 days. I'd wait for it to be out of fashion, and then I'd start whipping nay-nay. So that I could watch them in the background going, oh my God, my dad is so corny. Why am I saying all this right now? Because I just want us to loosen up a little bit. I feel a little tension in the room. For us to chill out some. There's nowhere to go and nothing to do and no one to be except for just to be. And isn't that beautiful? There's no enlightenment is not some big thing that happens and all of a sudden I am floating with the Buddha and Jesus Christ. That's why many of us seek out enlightenment so that we can be a Buddha or be Jesus. The Christ is already in you. The Buddha mind is already available. Tap into it. It is you already. Already. Somebody say, I'm already all that. Now, we've been in an interesting season as a community. A lot of transition. I don't know if you've noticed. Oh, I've noticed, because there's a lot of logistics that go into this stuff. And if you know anything about me, anybody that's close to me knows I do logistics so well. I am so well organized. I'm such an administrative person. Oh man, I cross T's and dot I's. It's what I do for fun. No, actually, I'd rather smoke dope than do any of that stuff that I just mentioned. I'm a creative person. I admire people who are administrative and organized. It's fantastic, but I don't even know if my socks wouldn't match if it wasn't for the wonderful wife that I'm married to. And so all of the moving and shifting and changing, and I'm saying all of that to say to you today, there's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be than right here with all you crazy misfits. Y'all are the nuttiest and coolest people I've ever met in my life, and I love it. Because I think I'm amongst a group of people who realize we're not here to save the world. We're here to create a new world. And how crazy is that? It is not saying to be well adjusted to an insane world. I want to be maladjusted, if that's a word. I don't know if it is. I don't want to be adjusted to the insanity of our world because I see a new world. I feel like those who've come before me and said, I've been to the mountaintop and I see what's possible. And since I've seen it, I can't unsee it. I know there's a better way to do life. I know there's a more equitable and loving way and compassionate way to do life. There's an emerging story that is flying in the face of the old story that has told us that we're limited and that we're not good enough and that we're born at a deficiency and that something is wrong with us. And we're turning off the noise of that false belief system and we're turning up the vibrational frequency of a higher truth. That is, we are divine beings who emanations and manifestations of the pure presence, that we've never been separate from the divine, that we are here to elevate the entire planet. We're here to upgrade the species from Homo sapiens to Homo luminous people. We're not just logical and statistical, that we are divine beings who are flying in the face of statistics and saying, every statistic that you've had, statisticians, you better get ready because we're about to change the vibrational frequency of this entire planet. The earth is not just asking for it, our entire solar system is asking for it. The celestials are the choir that are singing in harmony of a new song. Can you hear the sound? Yeah. So we've been, since the beginning of summer, talking about living in frequency, love, joy, and peace, and how that's frequency, not emotion. Then we moved out of that series, and how many remember where we went from there? We went into our spirit expressing season. We started talking about being aligned and activated. We didn't just talk about it, we committed to it. Where y'all at? Because some folks committed to it. You even wrote it down on a card. And I want to know, I don't need you to raise your hands, but how many of you remember that you committed to practicing love, joy, and peace every day? You remember that you, not to be perfect at it all the time, but to remind yourself to practice it as your ongoing frequency. And so then we moved out of the spirit expressing season, and over the last few weeks, we've been talking about the emerging story. Something fresh that's happening in the world. And I feel a new series coming on that will help us to, I think in some ways, codify, galvanize, bring this together and mold it into something that's really, really powerful. And that is a series I've chosen to title Grateful Anyway. Finding thanks in every season. Now this is where it gets tight but right. Because it's easy to be grateful when things are going the way we want them to go. But locating gratitude sometimes is hard, especially in the storms. And if you've ever been in a storm of your life before, you've ever been in transition, you've ever felt like that you are waking up and finding out that most of your relationships are transactional and not real. This can be painful to try to locate a sense of gratitude. So we've shared the few weeks that we've been talking, and Douglas really started the ball rolling down the bowling alley, and it hit the pins last week, and now we have the ball back, and we're going to roll another frame, saying that we are awakening to oneness and to wholeness and to interbeing. Interbeing is the recognition that I am you, you are me. We are connected to the planet. When we are dealing with a tree, we are connected to the planet. It's another part of our breathing apparatus. Not just that, but it has a vibration and stories that it would love to tell. We have a connection with the planet, with the dirt. We have great opportunities here in Florida and not that many excuses to go out and put our feet in the sand. And even if the sand was transferred from Orlando in some places, still it's sand from somewhere. Go put your feet in the sand, step into the water, feel the vibrational frequency of the planet. The planet is working with us and for us. Even extraterrestrials, we call them ETs, but in fact they're really just entities of the spirit world that don't necessarily carry a skin suit called a human body. They are all wanting to work with us as well, and it's spoken of in the Christian Bible as a great cloud of witnesses that are surrounding us. We may not be able to see them, but they're in the invisible world, and they're about to become visibly a part of this movement. By the way, be prepared for it. Now, gratitude, out of all of these things we've talked about, becomes the embodied song of that awakening. So it's how we consciously settle into a rhythm. It's how love remembers itself in motion. So gratitude becomes the way we show up. It becomes my attitude. So today, I'd like to share with you just for a few minutes, thank you, Jesus. Just for a few minutes, the simple thanks. It's the frequency of blessing. One of the greatest blessings we have in this life is the attitude of gratitude. Amen. And we we're so distracted that sometimes it's hard to practice it. How many would be willing to admit that there are just some days I'm way into my day getting run over by what's happening in the world, and I all of a sudden remember, oh my gosh, I haven't even said thank you for the breath I breathe. See, this is what's going to cause all of these beautiful energies that we talk about, all of these things that are so grandiose, to become grounded into our frequency and grounded into the embodiment. See, it's one thing to know these principles. It's another thing to embody it so much that it becomes your daily walking, talking, and acting practice. That's what's going to change the world. Not a bunch of grandiose talks from a platform, but it's when we use our life as that very platform and we live it in principle. There's a letter that St. Paul in the Christian Bible wrote. At least most scholars believe he wrote these two letters, and it was to a church or two churches in a city called Thessalonica. What an interesting name for a city. And these folks were called the Thessalonians. And so he wrote this letter, 1 Thessalonians 5:18, and it sticks out to me for the season that we're in. And it says this: in everything, give thanks, for this is the will of God concerning you. And he was talking to a group of people who were finding themselves persecuted. Many were being persecuted during that time. He was being persecuted during that time. In fact, when Paul wrote this letter, he was more than likely in a prison. So he's in a prison, Donna, saying, in everything, give thanks. I seriously doubt he was saying for everything, give thanks. Because he was probably shackled next to a soldier because they were afraid God was going to break him out of the jail again. So he's in a prison, so he's probably not saying to them, I'm telling you to be thankful when you're in prison. He's just saying, find thanksgiving and gratitude in the midst of your prison. So he says, in everything give thanks. And this is my translation, because you guys know, if I'm going to be called a heretic and a false prophet, I may as well prove it. Yeah. And so my translation of this is, in everything, in the light and the shadow, in the joy and the pain, tune your heart back to gratitude, for this is the vibration of divine alignment. So Paul said, this is the will of God concerning you. And what I get out of that is that this is the vibration of divine alignment. To find my way back to gratitude is simply to realign myself with a higher truth. So in everything, give thanks. Somebody say, in everything, give thanks. Give thanks. And again, it's not for everything, but in everything. It's that tiny change that shifts this whole letter that he's writing. Paul's not saying to just be thankful when things are easy. He's not saying just find gratitude when everything is your choice, it's going your way. He's saying choose the frequency of gratitude no matter what life hands you. Because gratitude is not approval of the circumstance. It's awareness of presence in the circumstance. Yes. Can you hear that? I'm not approving of the way our country is going, but I'm finding gratitude in the midst of the time period that we are in, because it's not who we are, it's where we are currently on this journey. Because who you are is I am presence. And that, out of the midst of what's occurring, is bringing the pressure that's necessary to push that all to the top. So in everything, that means sunshine, it means rain, it means laughter, it means pain. It's the awakened soul saying thank you, not because life is perfect, but because love is present. It's not because life is perfect, but it's because divine love is present. Somebody say divine love is present right here, right now. In other words, gratitude doesn't need a PhD. It doesn't need incense. It doesn't need a drum circle or a yoga mat. Those are great, by the way. We should have more of those. It doesn't need any of those things. Gratitude begins with the obvious, with the simple things. You know, I was just thinking the other day as I was pouring a cup of coffee. I think Lisa and Steve will appreciate this. As I was pouring a cup of coffee, I was like, thank you for this coffee. Any coffee drinkers in the house? Anybody like coffee? How about tea? Any tea drinkers in the house? When you pour that, you say, say thank you. I did the same thing when I poured a glass of bourbon the other evening on Friday. Because every once in a while you need the spirits in your life. We were at an event for the vocal team, for the choir and the music team, and Dan, Iman's husband, he's one of those who appreciates a good bourbon. And he said, might I suggest you just try this one? And I said, sure, if you try mine. So then I brought one out that I had brought with me for him. And it's called Larceny. He comes back a few minutes later and he says, oh, that burn is fantastic. I said, it is called Larceny. It's the simple things that I want to be grateful for, like my car started. See, if you can't find anything else, but my car started. My car worked today. I was able to get where I needed to go. For me, sometimes it's thank God the person in front of me did not order a triple half-calf oat milk pumpkin spice frappuccino shaken bacon waken with a side of fresh hand-whipped cream that somebody needs to take a week to make. And all I wanted was a regular coffee. Sometimes it's that. I know Steve gets me there. Remember that time we met for coffee and there was a lady that ordered, I don't know what she ordered, but they had to go to China to get it. We got a chance to visit. Gratitude starts here with the breath, with love, with bread on the table. There's some people not sure they'll have that. Yes. Can I get a witness from somebody? With there being those simple things available to us. Here's something, First Unity family. Gratitude starts for us with being grateful. There's a place with a roof on it for us to have services until we get settled. Spirit settles us into a more permanent state. Instead of looking for a home, make it a home. That's right. I got 3 amens on that. Instead of looking for a home, make it a home, and you attract the home. If you say, I'm home wherever I'm going, then the universe goes, yeah, now let me give you an upgrade. It loves to do it. It wants to provide it, but until we can appreciate what we have, we depreciate our opportunities. It's vibration. So it starts with paying attention. Probably one of the best things we could ever pay for is attention. And you can afford to. So pay attention. The emerging story to wake up to our oneness and our wholeness and our interbeing, it gets solidified into our system through an attitude of gratitude. Because an attitude of gratitude keeps your eyes open and keeps you awake. I want to stay awake. It's really frequency training 101 to stay in that attitude of gratitude. Now, I understand about Thanksgiving, and I know that there's different ideas about it politically and thoughts about how Thanksgiving was started in this country and how it became a federal holiday and all of this stuff. But it's the time of year that we decide to focus on the ideas of Thanksgiving, and it's not just a turkey and your mama's mashed potatoes. It needs to be about us reminding ourselves of a resonance, a frequency that we need to be in on a regular basis, that gratitude that causes all of our being to change. Rumi said this, wear gratitude like a cloak, and it will feed every last corner of your life. Wear gratitude like a cloak, and it will feed every last corner of your life. And when you put it on, this is what I believe. When you put it on, everything you meet will start to try to match that frequency. When you put on gratitude, the universe is going to coalesce around that, and everything you come in contact with is going to try to match that frequency. Somebody say, I decide to have an attitude of gratitude. We used to do this thing at Central State Hospital. I was sharing with Doug the other day. We did a lot of similar work, not knowing that we did a lot of similar work. When I was in Georgia. When I was in Georgia, I used to work for the state of Georgia, and I worked with a population of people who were called the criminally insane. In fact, we were talking about this the other day. The population was actually quite similar, just in a different state. And we used to have this thing that I had with all my guys and gals there, because well, let me say this the best way I know how. I had a very interesting, colorful group of people that I was working with. And I have 4 floors of these colorful people, and I don't mean color by race. I'm talking about just by personalities, because there were multiples. in any given room. In fact, it's the largest crowds I've ever given talks to, because they had, 15 personalities each. So we just multiply 10 times 15 is 150 people. Large groups. And we had this thing where I would get them to go around the room, while I'm sitting at this table, go around the room, and at first I would say, hey guys, share with me 2 things you're grateful for. 2 things you're grateful for. And sometimes they would share, and sometimes they weren't quite awake yet. Sometimes they were ticked off because the breakfast wasn't right and whatever it would be. But most of the time they'd kind of get it together, And I'd normally start, and it was in this one class that I had this one individual who was always the first one. He was ready. Before I could even get the words out of my mouth, he was talking about what he was grateful for. But in the same room was somebody else who was diametrically opposed to that idea. And it'd come around to him, and every single time it was, And he'd do just like that. Like, do you know words? Do you know words? Or it's just growls. And finally it broke through. It was about 6 months in, and it broke through. And he said, well, I got one thing. And I was like, okay, what's that? He said, well, I had coffee today. It was cold, but I had coffee. I said, that's one thing. Holy God, one thing. And it got to the place where I could just walk through the wards. I could walk through the wards and just hold up 2 fingers, and they knew what I was talking about. And across the room, somebody would say, 2 things, Reverend, 2 things. Today, last night my bed was warm, and today my coffee was warm. Yay! And it became a contest in the room. And this worked so well, I brought it home to these wonderful people with multiple personalities in my house called teenagers. And they all knew. Hold up 2 fingers. Go around the room, 2 fingers. And they would come up with 2 things they were grateful for. So I'm going to try that practice here with you, because all of us have multiple personalities in this room. We've not all been diagnosed maybe, but we all have them. And you know the one that shows up in traffic. It's different than the one that shows up at church. I don't know. Sometimes that one shows up at church too, but I'm going to hold up 2 fingers, and we're going to go around this room. We're going to practice this right here, right now. We're going to put this on like a cloak. I'm holding up 2 fingers, and who's going to be the first one?
Breath.
Breath?
Food.
Food.
You.
Oh, you too. Good band, by the way. What?
Health.
Health. Anybody else? Family. Love. First unity. Music. This community. Children. I woke up today. Everything. Well, come on, Joe. One up us. Why don't you? I said 2. He said everything. I like the way you think. Anybody else? Yeah?
Right here, right now.
Right here, right now. Christmas? Sunshine? Peace? Shower? Apples? Come on. Listen, let me tell you what we're doing right now. You can think this is silly, but we're literally raising the vibrational frequency of this room. And here's what's occurring in your brain. Your brain is figuring out that you're trying to find something to be grateful for, and even your brain joins the game. You want to have a life hack. Get into stating what it is you're grateful for. People will think, well, this is not very high theology here. Good. Stay in the fun of it. Raise the vibrational frequency. It doesn't have to be something that blows your mind out of the water every week. It needs to be something that shifts your whole way of living and seeing life. Gratitude will shift your whole life. And when you wear it like a cloak, it will feed every corner of your life. Meister Eckhart said this: if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that would be enough. Emerson said, cultivate, I love that word, cultivate the habit of being grateful for everything that comes to you and give thanks continuously. Our indigenous ancestors, they noticed something when they came here, at least here in this country, on this continent. They noticed when they would go to prayer out of the belief systems from Europe, they started with Dear God, Heavenly Father, because everybody knows God's a male, right?
Yeah, right.
I was being funny just then. She knows that we know. They would start with Dear God, and then they would start with asking God. The indigenous here, when they would start prayers, they opened with thank you to the water, thank you to the air, thank you to the vegetation. Thank you to the earth. Thank you to the sun. Thank you to the ancestors. Most of the time, they didn't even get to petition because they were too busy being thankful. Imagine what would happen if we did that. If we changed from petition to declaration of our thanksgiving. It would change the way we live in our world. Now, by the way, let me say this. Science backs this up. I just want you to know that I researched it. Not just Googled it, but I researched it. Science backs up that gratitude shifts your life. And here's a little funny factoid. Science is just God saying, see, I told you so. That's really what it is. And they're not against each other. They work well together. I've said this to you before, I think. I think science and spirituality, they are like twins. And they work fantastically together. God or spirit creates it, and science documents it. And puts it in a language that we can understand. They work very well together. But science, according to a Harvard research, it shows us that writing 3 gratitudes a day improves your immune system, your sleep quality, and it improves your mood. And these are facts that have been studied. Neuroscience shows us that gratitude lights up the prefrontal cortex, and that releases dopamine and serotonin into the bloodstream. Imagine that gratitude is just free medicine. And the only side effects are joy and peace and love and, I don't know, likability. You're easier to be around. And the HeartMath Institute found that gratitude actually synchronizes and harmonizes the heart and the brain. And it brings the body into a humming vibrational frequency like a tuning fork. It's called coherence, heart and mind coherence. And it happens through what? Gratitude. So, in other words, I thought this was cool. My grandma was practicing neurobiology before neurobiology was cool when she said, count your blessings, baby. Amen. She was practicing frequency science when she said, count your blessings. You remember the old song, count your blessings, name them one by one. How many heard that one? Count your blessings, see what God has done. And then they would go, count your blessings, name them one by one. You didn't know how to do it, did you? Count your many blessings, see what God has done. So grandma and that whole idea were practicing neurobiology before it was even cool. I knew this lady who was going through a divorce. She was deep into the divorce, and it was a bad one. Not that any of them are ever good, but this was a rough one. And I suggested to her during a coaching session that she consider making a gratitude list. And I said, I know this is going to be interesting at first, but I promise you it's going to lead to great things in your life, and you should consider it. She started with coffee, sunlight, and my dog doesn't hate me. Coffee, sunlight, my dog doesn't hate me. That's what she could come up with at first. And she didn't even want to read me the list, Bo. She didn't want to read it to me because she thought this is ridiculous. And when she read it to me, I was in tears. I said, it's fantastic. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's where it begins. And do you know, as she came over time, about 2 months later, Doug, you know, she came back and she said, I got to tell you about my gratitude list. I got to tell you. Before we get started, I got to tell you. I said, come on, bring it, sister. And she said, this time it says strength, resilience, community, power, love again. Gratitude did not erase her pain, but it kept her from drowning in it. And it kept her slightly more sane. So in your life, it's not here to erase your pain. I'm not saying ignore the hell that you're going through. I'm just saying that's why it reads, in everything give thanks. Not for everything, but in everything give thanks. And sometimes gratitude is survival humor. Like, man, I'm glad that when my kid rolled their eyes that the universe didn't split. Sometimes it's just those little, you find gratitude in the littlest things. So I'm asking you this week what I asked her to do. I'm asking you to consider writing down 3 things that you're grateful for every morning. Now, I'm not going to ask you to read it out next week. So it's not going to be a test, but I'm asking you to consider this practice. Write it down, a simple thing. And then I'm going to ask you to do something else this week. I'm going to ask you to call someone and tell them why you appreciate them. Not just tell them you appreciate them, but why. Go a little deeper in it and give them a reason why you appreciate them. Then I'm going to ask you to pause before you eat and actually taste your gratitude in the food. And allow yourself to really be with what is. This is called being present. And appreciation in your life will keep the depreciation of your life, it'll keep it at a low percentage when you have appreciation in your life. So every thank you is a tuning fork that makes the universe just a little brighter. Gratitude isn't the reward for awakening, but it is the rhythm that keeps the awakening alive and vibrant in our lives. And when I choose an attitude of gratitude, I change not just my own internal room, but I change every room I go into. And you'd be surprised at how much of a more beautiful person it causes you to become. It doesn't necessarily change your countenance in a way that you can see in a picture, but it changes your vibration so much that when you show up, every room gets changed just by you being there. The world needs you fully awake and fully alive. And one of the best ways to do that is to have an attitude of gratitude. And one of the best ways to have an attitude of gratitude is to have a gratitude practice. Yeah. Because what you practice may not become perfect, but it will become permanent in your life. And so I'm asking us during this season to be grateful. I am believing that we are on our way as a community to having a more permanent home. Geographically, a piece of property and a building that is beautiful and serves everything we need. Here's what I believe is a key to that. Here's what is a key to that. Being in gratitude for what we already have. And instead of complaining about where we are, getting into an attitude of gratitude about having a place to be. What is it Jason Mraz said? Wherever I'm going, I'm already home. I live in the moment. I'm already home wherever I'm going. That's going to produce the home that we really want. And the universe can't wait to give it to us. But if we'll get an alignment around our gratitude, I believe it'll change things. Holy Presence, move through us and tune us back into alignment with the truth that we are abundant beings, that all things are possible to us, that we have access to prosperity and to love and to joy and to peace. We have it at our fingertips at all times. But remind us to come back to gratitude for what we already have. And as a result of that, we'll begin to appreciate our lives. Help us to stay awake, aware, and alert, but never alarmed. We're not afraid. Because perfect love has already cast out fear. We know that we were sent here on a mission, and we have said yes to that mission. And we've said yes to the new vision, and that emerging story is coming forth from us. And in gratitude, we concretize that into our life. And we say, thank you, thank you, thank you, God. And so